Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Big Apple Hockey. We got an entertaining show to talk to you about today. Kind of projecting a lot of news that happened over the last 2 weeks. We had a bit of a week off. I, of course, am your host, Marc Williams. I was trying to tap on my close-up, but for some reason it was not working. There it goes. But I have to say, back-to-back years, the Lightning golf outing winner. That was my hockey team I used to play on. And of course, the man, fresh from coming back from Vermont, Mr. Anthony LaRocco.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to get away to the lake for a week. Also made the trip to Quebec City. It's only 3 hours away from our place in Vermont. So if you ever get a chance to go there, it's one of my favorite cities in the whole entire world. Quebec City, very beautiful. But yeah, I'm back, ready to talk some hockey. And Marc, tomorrow is August 1st, which means that is the last month with no NHL hockey until next June, July. So this training camp and the season's inching closer. And tomorrow's actually also my 9-year anniversary. So
Wow, all right.
Looking forward to that as well. So but yeah, 9 years of wedded bliss. So very happy. But yes, August 1st means NHL is on the horizon come September. Training camp's opening, so it's inching closer.
Yeah, Anthony, tomorrow actually is 1 year since I proposed to my fiance, and we're getting married in 3 weeks. 3 months and a week, as I keep on saying. So I can't wait till I'm saying 9 years of wedded bliss as well. I don't say this enough, everybody. Make sure you are subscribed and you like this, and also hit the bell for all of our stuff. And let's go to the A block. We're going to be joined by Philk very shortly, but the A block of today, we got a lot of stuff. I got a lot of ad reads I have to go into here too. A block is always powered by Seat Geek. You get $20 off your first order. Use the promo code BigAppleHockey. And we gotta talk about this because this is sort of the sort of Damocles, if you will, that's hanging over the heads of the New York Rangers. But Igor Shesterkin, the New York Rangers goaltender, is entering the final year of his contract, 5.666 AAV. He's reportedly looking for a 12-year deal. And I'm going to flash all of his stats and where his rankings are among the goaltenders that are active right now. Anthony, first, let me get your opinion. What should a new Shesterkin contract look like?
Well, listen, Marc, there's no doubt that he's the linchpin of the New York Rangers. He's an elite goalie. He's one of the best goalies in the league. And if he hit the open market come next year on July 1st, he would be in very high demand. With that said, I think we've all kind of said it here before in this channel. I'm weary about giving a goaltender $12 million. I get that the salary cap's going to keep going up. I mean, that's $12 million AAV. That's a lot of money per year. And despite the cap going up, it's just hard to give one player that much money when you're not named Connor McDavid. Look, I think that Shesterkin is going to get signed by the Rangers. Like I would be surprised. And yeah, I'm sorry if I said 12 years. I meant $12 million AAV. We're all aware that 8 years is the max.
Yeah, Anthony doesn't have a GIF for he screwed up.
So I think that he's going to be a Ranger. I think they're going to sign him. So I really wouldn't worry about that. But the $12 million number gives me pause. I mean, I don't think the Rangers should give him that. I think, could I see him getting 10 like Bobrovsky? I think that's more reasonable for sure. So we'll see what develops there. But two things kind of before I hand it over to you, Marc, is one, you hear about this $12 million number, and that's what he's asking for. Where was that exactly reported that he was asking for $12 million? Because I know I'm going to come in 1 second. I I think that was more of just people talking about the percentage of the cap and what the number would be that equates to $12 million. I don't actually remember reading, correct me if I'm wrong, if there was someone reputable that actually reported that that's his ask. The second part of that was, and again, every situation is different, and I'm not saying that we should read into this, but his best friend across the river in Ilya Sorokin, Marc, he signed the second that he was eligible to sign an extension. July 1st, he signed his extension. He wanted to be there, committed. Igor Shesterkin hasn't signed yet. He's been eligible to sign since July 1st. Why hasn't he? What's going on in his head? Does he want to be a Ranger for the rest of his career? What's pausing him to not sign on the dotted line right away? And again, every situation is different. Austin Matthews didn't sign right away when he was eligible to. So that's why I say, can't read into it, but it's just a question that I kind of have proposed in my head is, why hasn't he signed with the Rangers yet once he was eligible?
That's a great question actually to ask, Anthony. I had the source in the tweet last week. I actually don't have it on me right now, so I had it last week. Completely forgot where the hell it is. This has been the talk of the entire postseason for everybody because Shesterkin has to be. I mean, he's the backbone of their playoffs. They definitely wouldn't have pushed the series to 6 against Florida. Never mind, been in that series. Arguably, they don't beat the Hurricanes without Shesterkin. Now, a couple things to bring up is one of the reasons why that contract is not signed is because cap situation, they need to know definitively what the cap is next year. Could be that. It could be that they're negotiating behind the scenes and trying to figure this one out because Shesterkin really had a decent regular season up until February. And then after the All-Star break, Shesterkin was lights out. He was amazing. And certainly, like his predecessor, Henrik Lundqvist, won the President's Trophy, got to the conference finals, was defeated by a team from Florida. Now, the question is, what are you going to sign him to? Because again, let's go to some of your comments right here, guys. Because this is where I get into this. And a B-Rye saying a good one, 7 years, 10.5. I think that one I could stomach a little bit. And yeah, Firestorm, you're right about that, how overpaid Carlson was. And especially, and that's another thing too that I bring up whenever we talk in our circles is there's just, it's just, can you afford to give a goalie that deal? Every Ranger fan griped about this for years on all things Rangers. Oh, the highest paid player. Oh, there is their goaltender. They can't ever use their resources to go elsewhere. Well, they did go out and get Rick Nash. They got Marian Gaborik. They tried to get running mates for Lundqvist, but they're just not as good. So it's hard to say what they should pay Shesterkin because already paying Panarin $11.6 million. I don't think you could pay a goaltender any more than 10. They don't appear in enough games, and especially in this day and age where goaltenders are babied. I have to double check who the last goaltender was that even played 73 games because those days are long gone. They're about 10, 15 years ago, the last time you saw those days. Goaltenders.
I think he's going to. I think
Go ahead.
I mean, Jeremy Swayman's left unsigned. I'm curious to see how Swayman's contract will affect Igor. I mean, granted, one's a RFA right now and one's going to be a UFA, but I mean, I think, these guys are going to be looking like Swayman's going to probably get into the 8s, so I think Shesterkin's worth more than that. I mean, I think 9, 9.5 is a fair number. But again, he might want Bobrovsky contract. We're gonna have to see how it plays out.
And now I'm not going to go blame the Jacob Trouba situation why it hasn't happened yet, because that would be ridiculous at the moment, because the extension wouldn't kick in until next year anyway. But it's an interesting thing to try to figure out what to do with it. And again, keep in mind, Carey Price, he signed that $10 million deal. He was quickly, that's all going to be on all IR. I think he was the first $10 million goaltender. Lundqvist was 8.5 when the cap was lower, and a lot of people kept complaining about it. And a matter of fact, Lundqvist didn't finish that deal either. Shesterkin is still young enough where if you sign him to 7 years or 8 years, then you could actually still have him like the tail end of his prime. So I'm not against signing him to 8 years, but that's a big commitment. And for a goaltender who has to be your number one the entire time, his groin better be good, because we've gotten away from talking about whether or not his groin's ever a problem. He's doing those new training techniques. We saw him getting blindfolded. It's an interesting thing to see, because if you look at his numbers, he almost stands alone, Anthony. Number one in wins, number two in save percentage. Only Linus Ullmark, who had career numbers in the first 2 years of the Bruins, and third in goals against to Anderson and Ullmark, who play in defensive systems.
But here's the thing: if you break it down even more, though, Marc, I tweeted about this a couple of weeks ago. The last 2 seasons, his save percentage was middle of the road. I think he was 10. I have to scroll back and look, but it was either like 10 and 11th in the league in save percentage, or 9th or 10th the last 2 seasons. Like around 913, 914. I mean, that's good. That's good, but that's not $12 million worth of good. I mean, granted, his play in the playoffs has been really, really well. But for me, if I'm paying a goalie $12 million per season, he better be posting save percentages of 927 and higher at the least, and being at the top of the league. Because again, that's a lot of money to pay for a goalie who during the regular season the last 2 years has kind of, don't get me wrong, top 10 is still very good, but I mean, $12 million, you want to be like first or second in some of these categories with eye-popping numbers. In the last 2 regular seasons, that has not happened. I mean, if you take that a step further too, again, $12 million goalie. There was for a portion of the season, Marc, where his save percentage actually dipped below 900. It was at 899 at one point. I mean, that's like Gorgiev bad, So, and I get goalies go through spurts and stuff. I do get that. That's fine. But for a guy that's making $12 million, like, I just expect him to be on another level throughout the season and not have, just better than good numbers. I want him to be outstanding. That's just my take on it.
You're right about that. And that's where I think you're 100%. If you're getting paid that money, because you look at these guys that are paid the big bucks. These guys are getting the big bucks. Matthews, a threat to score a goal every single night. McKinnon, a threat to get a goal and an assist almost every single night, if not 2. McDavid averages almost 2 points a game, or actually 1.5 points or whatever. Panarin, 120 points this year. Unbelievable. Patterson, finally developing into that player that they thought they was going to be franchise setter. Erik Karlsson, okay. Doug Wilson made a mistake on that one. And William Nylander's getting 11.5, and part of that I think also has to do is if you hit the open market, he might have gotten like an equivalent to that, say in like other areas. So I was gonna say some places that don't have income tax, but it's not necessarily just those places. The thing is, if you're a goaltender and you're playing, and as I can look at the games played right now, UC Saros, 64 games. Alexander Georgiev, 63 games. I mean, Igor Shesterkin had a light workload last year, played 55 games. You cannot have a guy who's getting paid $12 million. And I think Larry Brooks actually is the one that brought this up. And I think it's just the asking price. It's what he might look for. Obviously, Anthony, negotiations are going to happen and they'll figure out a number almost anywhere because I think everybody would be crazy. But it's going to lead me into another question in a moment on that, Anthony. If you have your goaltender who's only playing 55 games, and that's nearly half the season, you can't have it taking up so much of your salary cap. Because then what might happen is to circumvent the salary cap, they might have to keep them off the roster those days. Or scratch. I mean, I don't even know how they do the cap gymnastics sometimes, Anthony. But like, I mean, you look at the Rangers, obviously, Shesterkin, not even in the top 5 highest paid New York Rangers. And you could easily say he's the most important player. Yes, he has that bad month of January, but usually after the All-Star break, he turns it on like no other goalie in the league. I think the last couple of years he had over a 920 save percentage. I think the last year was almost a 930. And is he worth the money if there was no salary cap? Yes. And I've gotten into arguments about salary cap percentage, Anthony, but I would have trouble doing that because the other reason is elite goalies don't end up winning Stanley Cups. There's 6 Vezina Trophy winners that have won a Stanley Cup. Marc-Andre Fleury won his Vezina after winning a Stanley Cup. So did Braden Holtby. That was Braden Holtby won the Cup after he won the Vezina, but he wasn't even the starting goalie at that time. Braden Holtby was arguably not an elite goalie by that time. So I have that reservation. Could you take that money and spend it elsewhere, improve this team greatly in your forwards or even in your defense?
Yeah,
but it's hard for me.
If he wants to win a Stanley Cup as a New York Ranger, sometimes you got to look big picture. I mean, listen, $9.5 million is nothing to sneeze at. If he takes a little less, so the Rangers can keep this team together as long as they can to give them the best chance to win the cup, he's still getting paid, and they have a high chance of winning. If he were to get $12 million, I mean, I think that that hurts the Rangers' ability to put the best team on the ice that they possibly can. And I would think he would recognize that, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what's in his head. I mentioned it before. I don't know if this $12 million ask is if that has any legs to it, or it's just speculation based on percentage of the cap, as opposed to like what Carey Price was when he signed his deal and Sergei Bobrovsky. So I'd be surprised if he was actually legitimately asking for 12. I don't foresee that as the reality. I think. Like I said, and Matt actually just said it here, but I think 9.5. I think 9.5 is a fair number. So we'll see where it goes, but I think that ultimately it gets done. The Rangers sign him. I really wouldn't concern myself with it. I think the only if it comes, let's say next trade deadline, and he still hasn't extended, then maybe I would kind of, if I was a Ranger fan, I would have a little bit of a pause and start to question, does this guy, want to be here? But for now, I don't think there's any concern about him leaving. It's just a matter of finding the right number that works for both the player and the organization.
Right. And also another driving factor always is the Players Association. Players Association always wants to get their guy to make you want the next guy to make the next contract, so the next guy after you can make more money. So Shesterkin might get a little bit pressure out of that, so that way Jake Ottinger makes more money when his contract comes up. And you always want to be fair.
To be fair.
And reward the guy for what he has done in all of his years as a New York Ranger goaltender. He's already won a Vezina Trophy. He's carried him in the last 3 playoffs. And yes, I'm saying all 3 because it was those numbers he put up against the Devils. He should have been playing in the second round. There's no question about that. he had a sub 2 goals against and a .931 save percentage. So he's been their best player in the playoffs. He was what was keeping them alive. And things could have been a little bit different if Jacob Trouba didn't go all the way up to the top of the circles on that penalty kill in the game 4. So let me go on to that one. But getting back to
Marc,
Shesterkin,
but I was just going to say, just by comparison, two years ago, Ilya Sorokin was second in the National Hockey League in save percentage. The year after that, he was third in the NHL in save percentage, and that landed him an $8.5 million contract.
8.5. Yeah, I'd have to double check that number.
Yeah. So 2 years of being, what I just say, fourth and third in the league in save percentage, and he got that. So Shesterkin the last 2 years, like I said, has been around 10 or 11. Now, does that matter in the grand scheme of things? I don't know. I mean, you could look at his playoff performance and say that outweighs it, but I just keep that in mind about when it comes to where a goalie's going to land with his AAV. So, but then again, the Rangers understand how good he is in the playoffs, so maybe that's ultimately what's going to get him paid more money.
The day Sorokin signed that contract, I would have had that contract printed out for Igor Shesterkin, because both those guys have earned their money and thoroughly, and obviously they're BFFs, so they'd like to stay close to each other. But and you're just looking at this, and it's tough. And as Matt's saying right there, the music's, yes, is why the Rangers haven't won a cup. Same reason that they didn't win with Hank either. You don't win a cup relying on your goaltender. That's kind of what, you need the goalie to make the big save and to keep it. Because if you're telling me Stuart Skinner is a Stanley Cup goaltender and Igor Shesterkin is not, you're out of your mind. Stuart Skinner's in the Stanley Cup Finals because Connor McDavid scored 40 points. And it's just that simple. So, again, I wish we had Philk on there, but let me shift gears a little bit, Anthony. I want to try to ask you this one. Let's say Shesterkin doesn't sign a deal. He goes the full season. He hits the open market. What happens in that case? What teams are interested?
That's a little bit of a loaded question, because I think it would depend on what kind of year he had next year. Like, obviously, Marc, if he has another regular season, which he has the last 2 years, when it comes to goals against and save percentage, don't get me wrong, he'd still be in very high demand, but you might not be hearing these numbers of 12 anymore. Now, if he has the year he did 3 years ago, where he had a Hasek type year, I mean, then forget about it. All bets are off. But as far as what teams, I mean, I think when that type of caliber of goaltender becomes available, there would be some teams that would probably move on from a guy that they were actually happy with just to try to get this guy. And then you'd have the teams that really need a goaltender lining up as well. So I think a lot of teams would be interested. I think, one off the top of my head, the Flyers. I mean, they got some, Fedotov and some other guys, Russians coming up, but I mean, they could use this really solid starting goaltender. The Hurricanes, I think, would make a pitch. I mean, you're talking Charlie Lindgren was good for the Capitals. The Maple Leafs. The list goes on and on. There'd be a whole ton of suitors for him. But hopefully for him and the Rangers, it doesn't get that far, and then come to an agreement, which I think it will. But if he did hit the open market, he would have no shortage of suitors. That is for sure.
Yeah, I would have to say that there'd probably be no shortage. There would be a lot of teams that would say, we got our guy, we'll stick with him. Obviously, Jeremy Swayman in Boston. Florida has Bobrovsky. Vasilevsky's locked up. But you look over at teams like, say, Utah that want to
well, not trade. We're talking about free agency in this.
It's free agency. Because here's another thing that's the one reason why there's a little bit of a wrinkle. I've been bringing this up the last 2 years, and goalie trades in season don't happen anymore. They just don't. And you very rarely ever see that. So if you might be, well, if he doesn't sign by the time the trade deadline comes around, well, what do you do if the Rangers are in first place in the Metro again? And then those goalies don't get traded anymore, because I think like you're not going to see a Ryan Miller going from Buffalo to St. Louis at the trade deadline and trying to bolster them in the playoffs. It just it doesn't happen. All right.
You're right.
Oh yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't happen. Is what I'm saying. But how about this, Mark? Before we move on, we've talked about this before, but who says no as of today? Leon Draisaitl for Igor Shesterkin.
Edmonton wouldn't do it because I think now they believe in Stuart Skinner. Last year, the Rangers. And that actually might go through. I would say last year it's the Rangers, but that might go through if it was last year. This year, Edmonton says no, because now they got Stuart Skinner, and he's been to a Stanley Cup final. He's played games, and there's everybody going, "Oh, hey, Christie is saying this is still ridiculous. Why do teams think Igor is so worth the $11.5 to $12 million range? Hot take, but a goalie cannot single-handedly win you a Stanley Cup, not even his prime Hasek. That money needs to be spent on McDavid." Well, that's going to be interesting, because let's see. I think McDavid's contract and Artemi Panarin's runs out at the same time.
We'll
see
about
about
this
that one in future years.
Who says no? Jack Hughes and Jacob Markstrom for Igor Shesterkin and Mika Zibanejad.
Devils say no. Even though they get an upgrade on the goaltender, Hughes is. I think Hughes is ready to really ascend to one of the top 3-4 players in the NHL. He just needs to be healthy. I had him as the MVP last year, so I think the Devils would say no on that.
What about Mitch Marner for Igor Shesterkin?
I think the Rangers say no, because right now they don't have a replacement that's for Igor. And I mean, at least Igor has 4 less points than Mitch Marner in the playoffs, maybe 3. I have to look up how many assists Shesterkin had in the playoffs. I know he had a couple, but I'm leaning towards not hitting the panic button just yet. But the question needs to be raised right now for the New York Rangers, and we'll see whether or not that's going to be the case. Anthony, first things first, we got, and there he is again, right back in Technicolor, as it was said a long time ago. Anthony, with just got to do this read. With the world the way it is, we're all under a little bit of stress. When you're under stress, if you're thinking about therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Stop complaining. Start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/THPN today for 10% off your first month. Devils say no easily. Matt saying, imagine swapping Hughes for Mika. Yeah, and Hughes was electric in the playoffs. Absolutely electric in the playoffs. By the way, thanks to people watching on Rumble for the first time. I did look down. I saw that there was a good deal right there, but hopefully getting some more. 50 point. David, don't ever forget that clearing attempt against the Canadians in his own end, then he fired over the glass on the other side. Marner's. I wouldn't say no to Mitch Marner necessarily, but I think I need to see more of him out of the playoffs. Christy is asking, Anthony, do you think that the Blackhawks will give Bedard the largest contract in NHL history? Let's say if he puts up 44 goals and 44 assists this year.
Well, the way I view this is natural progression, right? When the next big guy is up in terms of a contract, he tops the previous guy. McKinnon, we saw how much he got when he got in his contract, how much he got paid. Matthews,
$100,000.
You're gonna probably see it with Draisaitl. I would imagine Draisaitl is going to get a little more than McDavid on his next deal. So with that being said, when when Bedard is due for his next contract, if he puts up large numbers, he's going to get paid. So I do think it's a possibility, Chris. But we'll have to see. I mean, right now, like I wouldn't pay him $13-14 million right now, but when he's up, if he lives up to the potential that everyone kind of thought this guy could be, then yeah, I think he has the potential to get the largest, AAV in the game. But it is true though. Like I said, when the next guy is up, usually you get more than the previous top dog. So there is something to that.
But he's going to have to give up UFA years too. And I think the max you can offer now is 8 years to your player. So if that's the case, Anthony, that's a little bit too quick to be giving those years to him. The teams have to use the hammer when they got it. When you just give the player the money. We were talking about this in our group chat today, a little bit, and we got Phil coming in right now. We were talking about this in our group chat today, guys. That I'm hesitant before just shelving out so much money to a young player just because you're like, oh, they're going to grow into this. But if you give that to Bedard right away, what are you saving?
Yeah, I mean, let's get Phil's opinion here. Chris T asked me this question, and I was saying, Phil, that it's kind of like a natural progression thing. When the next guy is up, usually, like you saw it with McKinnon when his contract came due, he got more than the previous top guy. You're going to see it with Draisaitl probably. He might get more than McDavid on his next contract. So when Bedard is up, do you think Bedard might eventually get the highest AAV in the game if he produces?
If he produces to that level where he's a consistent, excuse me, where he produces at a consistent like 100 plus point level, then yeah, it's just like the NFL. It's the next quarterback up. It's the name of the game. Yeah. I mean, remember when A-Rod got that insane contract years ago after Manny Ramirez got his insane contract from Boston? Mm-hmm. We were all like, whoa, these contracts are crazy. I can't believe they're giving Manny Ramirez $20 million and then they gave A-Rod $25.2 million a year. And so on. It happens that way. That's how it is. That's the progression in the market in sports. The next, like you said, the next man up, the guy that produces near the top level gets the next biggest contract. It doesn't matter if Derek Carr was the best quarterback in the league or not when he got his contract. Yep. He got the biggest contract for a quarterback. That's what happens. So, I would say that Bedard is probably going to get that level of money if he's producing near McDavid's level. Let's just say he puts up 100 points this year, for argument's sake. You think that Chicago wants to wait another 2 years or another year after that, rather, to give him $14 million instead of giving him 10, 11 million right there and then and there? No, they'd rather give him 11 million right off the bat and say, you know what? Hey, we don't want you to get any more of a deal than what we think you could get in another year. And that's why this coming year could hurt the Rangers badly with Alexei Lafreniere, because let's just say he produces at a point per game level this year. He's going to command more than Slavkovsky. He's going to command more than Byfield. He's going to command more than all those guys. He's got the pedigree, and he's right there. We're talking about recent number 1, number 2 overall picks. I mean, if Lafreniere has another year like this where he bets on himself, he produces big time, he is going to get that money, and the Rangers are going to have to shell that out.
Phil, to answer that question for you, I think I would look over and say there'd be 2 Rangers that you say goodbye to right away on that. One of them, the obvious, Jacob Trouba, because they were trying to move him. His no-move clause still is letting him get moved, and they could just buy him out next year too. He's a little bit more affordable on the buyout if and the other one's Chris Kreider. And Chris Kreider, he would still have some trade value if he puts together a good season, but you have to open it up to give Alexei Lafreniere more playing time. You'd lose the weapon of Chris Kreider in front, but what would Lafreniere be as a guy in front of the net? That's a great question. What would his power play numbers look like? We'll see about that. Phil, just before we completely move on to the next question, now that you're here, 2 quick questions for you.
–
1, what does a new Igor Shesterkin contract look like?
hopefully under 10 million AAV. I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to be, but I mean, the Rangers would hope that it's under 10 million. Shesterkin's camp supposedly wants a $12 million AAV, which is insane. And if that's the case, see ya. You can't go giving a goaltender a $12 million AAV. Sorry, it's just too many Stanley Cup winners in the cap era have proven that you can win without elite goaltending. Obviously, it's going to be a big loss if they do lose him and they lose him for nothing. But if he's this is where the Rangers need to avoid getting John Tavares by the Islanders, like he did with the Islanders. They need to go out and they need to say,
Sorry,
hey, sorry, Anth, but it's true. But they need to go and they need to just put their foot down right now. If you want 12 million and they're not willing to go to that number, then they need to establish that and they need to deal him right now this offseason or as soon as possible.
That's why the question's being answered, because the other question I had, Phil, that's kind of important. What happens if Shesterkin hits the open market?
I don't know if he gets 12 if he hits the open market. I think that's an insane number to ask for. I don't know if many teams are going to be willing to give 12 million to a goaltender. I mean, listen, he's great. He's the best goaltender in the league for my money. I think the playoffs this year reaffirm that. I think we can all take a look at Igor Shesterkin. He's the only active goaltender with 3 35-win seasons since the COVID season, the first COVID-shortened season. So he's the only active goaltender with that. Plus, his Vezina win in 2022 and his playoff appearances have shown you that he just has the ability to turn it on like that. So if he has a bad regular season or a down regular season, you know what? If he gets that, then good for him. I don't think there's going to be a team that's going to want to give him $12 million DP. I mean, if that's the way that he wants to go, if he doesn't want to take a note from Jalen Brunson and take a little bit of a discount to keep a team together to try to win, then that's on him. And you know what? I'm not going to fault him for going after the bag. That's his money. I mean, he worked his ass off for it. And so don't take this like I'm holding a grudge against Igor for going after his money. He deserves every bit of it. But at the same time, you got to be smart about building your team, and giving goaltender a $12 million AAV is not smart, and it's not going to help you keep your team together. So the Rangers might have to start looking in-house for options or looking elsewhere for options. Maybe it's Dylan Garand that can come up, and you know what? They're going to take a step back in that regard. But if they have to take a step back in that regard to keep the rest of their team together, then maybe that's what they have to do. Maybe they have to think about retooling, because the ship is going to pass one way or the other. The ship either passes if he leaves and they have to go in a different direction goaltending wise. And the ship is going to pass if he gets that contract and they have to remove every single other item from their team or multiple core pieces from their team to stay with him in net. So they're damned if they do, damned if they don't.
I accidentally flashed the graphic for the next question, but so we had a nice little. And by the way, you're right, Bob. Go ahead.
This comment is funny only because Tavares and Marner, if they both were to leave in the offseason, the Leafs would have enough money to throw at Shesterkin.
But it doesn't seem like Marner is leaving, and well, right now at least. And Tavares, is he a buyout? Like he's.
What I'm saying is that he's a free agent at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So his contract is off the books.
So okay, so his deal is off the books at the end of this upcoming season.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
That's interesting. I mean, would they do it considering? Okay, so my question here is with Toronto, they get rid of that much cap space. Are they going to go and then just automatically just give that much right back to it on one player when they realize that they had problems adding depth over the last 2 years? So the The league could be the same position the Rangers are in. You're
Right,
going to have to give a goaltender a $12 million AAV. You still have so many other areas of need, and you're not going to be able to fill them because you gave a goaltender $12 million. I really don't think he's getting $12 million on the market. I don't. I think this is a strategy. Obviously, I think it's negotiations. You start high, and then you come down, and you meet in the middle. That's what negotiations are. It's always how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So the question really is, where do Igor and the Rangers meet? Do they meet at 10? Do they meet at 10.5? Does he have to be the highest AAV goaltender in the league and take 11 to beat Bobrovsky in that regard? I mean,
well, 10.1 would beat Bobrovsky in that regard.
Well,
so,
all right, sorry. 10 point. Does he have to take 10.6 to beat Carey Price?
There you go. There's another question. Those are all the things we're going to have to find out soon enough. And he could say, where would this team be without me? But, oh, don't worry, James, we're getting to that one.
No. There's one last thing I want to say about that.
Yeah.
The reports all say that he wants a record deal. A record is technically 10.6. Just remember that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to see about that soon enough. And as Mike and Where Life is saying, 12 million is insane. I think it was too satisfying to fans when it's only 10 million or 11.9 million. Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting on that. All right. From our friend Statboy Steven, who tweeted this out. What rule change would you be in favor of? Would you pick? Team gets a power play if they score on a delayed penalty. Power play ends on a shorthanded goal. Opposing coach gets to pick who deserves a bench minor penalty, which I'll be honest with you guys, I thought that was the rule. And remove the kicking motion rule. Any goal off a skate is disallowed.
All right. So you might want to enlarge that for the fans or for the viewers.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be fine right there. Let's enlarge it for you guys. There you go. So Anthony, you first. What do you think?
This is tough,
man. It is a tough one.
Pretty cool. I mean, I got to give a lot of credit to Steven, who's actually been really good at coming up with content on Twitter this offseason for considering it's slow season and everything like that. And there hasn't been a lot of big news lately. So kudos to Steven for really coming up with something really cool here. I like this a lot because it really makes you think.
I mean for me, it's definitely not D, because if you're a player in front of the net and you're not even, let's say, watching necessarily, and the puck happens to hit off your skate and goes in, I don't think that should be not allowed. You clearly had no intention to do that. It was just luck. So I wouldn't be a fan of that personally.
Yeah.
I don't like that rule.
Yeah, I would say if he would have opened up choice D and said allow or disallow all goals off, then I think he would have gotten more responses for D. Can you enlarge them again, Mark?
Yeah, I was going down for editing purposes, guys.
Yeah, so. keep that up. Sorry.
I'm kind of in favor on power play ends on a shorthanded goal.
I've thought about that, and I think that's pretty awesome. Like, I think if you get a shorthanded goal, yeah, I like the idea of losing a power play if you get scored on shorthanded, because and not only that, but that is a massive. It's already a massive momentum boost for any team that's shorthanded. But let's just say, like, you're down by a goal and you're on the penalty kill and you score shorthanded. Not only are you getting that shorthanded goal and tying the game, but you're killing their penalty completely off at that point. That's pretty interesting. A double dagger would be a pretty interesting term to use there, Firestorm.
Opposing coach gets to pick who. Oh, wait. The opposing coach.
Yeah, the opposing coach.
All right, now I get it.
Not the team receiving the penalty, Mark. That's
why I thought. That's why I was like that. Okay, I'd be. I'd be okay with that. Can't take a goaltender though.
What's that? Oh yeah,
Uh,
it can't be the goaltender. Well, obviously, it can't be the goaltender. You can give the penalty to the goaltender, but somebody has to take the penalty for the goaltender.
yeah.
I would say it's either got to be A or B for me. I do think that you know what? I want to go with A.
Want to go with A?
Yeah, I'm going to go with A because I like the idea of there being an incentive to score. Now that I think about it, they already have a power play.
Yeah, they were. I can't. That's why I thought about that anyway. But then when they already have the power play, the opponent can't touch the puck. So what's the difference?
I mean, it's already a power play. So giving them another power play on top of that. I mean, I get it if you want to. If your goal is to increase scoring, then okay, that makes sense. I think there are other ways you can do that, though.
Now, just to say one thing about B, the shorthanded goal ends a power play. I know that's in the women's league, but you think about teams like the New York Rangers who have Chris Kreider, Simon Holmstrom on the New York Islanders who had it was 7 shorthanded goals this year, right? Anthony? Yeah. Okay. So now do the Islanders then take more chances? I mean, think about both teams and they have Michael Grabner. He got shorties all the time. And now that's just an extra dagger that you could use to kill a penalty. And as they said, double dagger. I that's why I kind of like that. So, all right, guys, let's close out this one because I only have a limited amount of time. Okay, wait, let's talk about this one, boys. The KHL rule that you can't move the puck backwards in overtime. Anthony, what do you think?
I mean, if they want to try to eliminate shootouts, this rule makes sense because overtime is all about puck possession. You see it all the time.
Yeah,
guys will circle back into their own zone until they see something they like or they get the matchup they want. If you were to not allow this anymore, it would force the team with the puck to head the puck up the ice, even though they don't necessarily have anything, which could cause a turnover, which go the other way and possibly end the game. So I think this rule would make overtime games end quicker and thus make shootouts a little more rare.
Phil?
Yeah, I'm totally on board for this. It's basically the NBA backcourt violation rule. I do agree with Anthony. The game in overtime is kind of played like if you've ever played tournament roller hockey. That's exactly how tournament roller hockey is played.
Mm-hmm.
It's regroup, wait for a pass. The puck can go literally around in the defensive zone. God knows how many times until a proper breakout option is seen and executed. And that's the way that overtime is played now in the NHL. So I would definitely be on board with this because that would prevent that from happening. Like Anthony said, it's going to create turnovers because instead of being able to take the puck, and then if it goes back over the line, I think there should be a penalty for that.
I hate this. It's only because I probably get over it, guys, but I just hate it because I don't like a backcourt violation. You just leave it in the NBA, in the NHL, figure out a different way to do it. When 3-on-3 started, I think it was EJ Radic or was it even John McClain? One of the guys on Hockey Night Live said, it doesn't really matter. They're going to be able to coach this out of the game. So you think it's going to be completely offensive. Coaches are going to figure this out. Yeah, now we have a new way that everybody plays in overtime. It's puck possession. And it is what it is. I don't want to keep going with gimmicks. Just play hockey. Go with, I didn't even think about, I said before, I would have done a 10-minute overtime. That's what I would have done.
I would do continuous 10-minute overtime, but they're not going to do that. The Players Association will never approve that.
Right. It's different for the playoffs, which is the best version of overtime. like I said, guys, I'd probably get over this, but still, it makes me
either
roll
that
my eyes.
or the other thing they could do is, you want to talk about not making it gimmicky, go to the 3-point system. 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points for an overtime win, 1 point for shootout win, and then get rid of loser points. Get rid of loser points. Those have got to go.
They'll never get rid of the loser point. That'll never happen.
Go. It's got.
Once they started doing the loser point,
but it's got to go. It's stupid.
But Phil, I do like that rule. We've talked about this for years, because I think if you're doing that, imagine being a team that, like Minnesota this year, pulling their goaltender. You need the 3 points. You don't need the one.
Go to 4 points for a regulation win, 3 points for an overtime win, 2 points for a shootout win, and then 1 point for an overtime or shootout loss.
Yeah, but then again, I don't want to see a team get 200 points in a season. So
okay, but something's got to change then. Something's got to change. I mean, I know the point amounts would look ridiculous, but at least you understand that there's a formatting change by getting 4 points then for a regulation win. It shouldn't be. There should be no loser points. There shouldn't be a loser point. You shouldn't get points for just getting to overtime. Oh, let me get a 3-goal lead, blow it in a period and a half, and then play for overtime and hope to God that I win in a shootout.
Yeah,
that's stupid.
Well, or let me just barely scrape into overtime and get the point, and then that's it. All right, guys, we got to hurry because I've got to get to work soon. We got about 15 minutes left of me, but you got 2 other capable voices. Let's get a quick word from DraftKings. Hockey fans light the lamp this winter with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New customers can bet just $5 pregame money line on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. If that wasn't enough excitement, you can turn small bets into bigger payouts with same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more for your shot at an even bigger payout. Download the DraftKings Sports app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at the DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN.
Shot. This is the easiest I've ever to answer.
I say beer. I can't even begin to describe.
I'm actually going to go crazy. I'm going to buy everybody around on this one. Welcome back to Big Apple Hockey's Bar Talk. Yes, I changed around the intro, especially since Anthony told me that I spelled Alexander Ovechkin's name wrong for 2 years. So, and that no one noticed it. So we're going to make sure nobody notices that ever again. So welcome back to Big Apple Hockey's Bar Talk.
Now it's going to be fresh on everybody's mind because you just reminded everybody.
Well, now it's in the past. Now it doesn't matter anymore.
Here you go. No more over chicken.
No more over chicken.
You had that out yourself there, didn't you?
You know what? I just, I'll take the blame. I can't believe none of us recognize that. So anyway, welcome back to Big Apple Hockey's Bar Talk. We're gauging our confidence on NHL topics based on our choice of drink. You're so confident you're buying around. So I'll have a beer, or you see over chicken after 2 years and go, oh God, I need a shot. Play along down in the comments below. And remember, there's Big Apple Hockey trucker hats and shirts that are available. We'll be doing the fan thank you show later on this month. I'll send some of those out as well. Guys, Ryan Lindgren, one of the 2 New York free agents, the RFAs, signed this week, 1 year, $4.5 million deal. And there was a tweet from one of my co-hosts saying that likely he won't be a Ranger in opening night of 2025. Philk, Ryan Lindgren will be a New York Ranger opening night of 2025.
I don't think so. I'm gonna say beer. I don't think it's for sure that he's leaving, but they don't want to commit to him long term, and I don't blame them. There's a big issue with his health, and at his size, there's a very good chance that his next contract isn't going to age well. They can't afford to make that same mistake with Stahl and Girardi that they, or same mistake with Lindgren that they did with Stahl and Girardi. So you can't commit that type of money to a guy who really belongs as probably a number 4, at best on a championship team, and then give him that type of money and continue to overplay, to play him well above his means. The Rangers have had a bad habit over the last 18, almost 20 years now that we've been in the cap era of playing defensemen well above their means. Michael Roosevelt, Marek Malik, Marc Stahl, Dan Girardi, guys that were pigeonholed as number 1, number 2 defensemen, and they should not have been anywhere near a top pick. So they need to stop that cycle now and not give him a big long-term deal, because that deal isn't going to age well.
Anthony, what do you think?
I'm leaning towards that they're gonna let him walk. Next year that's re-sign Lafreniere, Shesterkin. They're gonna have to trim payroll elsewhere. Granted, Trouba could go, and that would do it. But I'm thinking they might not be married to him, so I'll say Beer. But I do truly believe that this could be his last year in New York.
Guys, I really want to say Shot, or I want to buy around, but I'm just going to go with Beer on this and make it a hat trick. Because here's the real thing. I look at Ryan Lindgren and I can't help but say, man, that guy plays hard. You want a guy like that on your team. But after all, Philk, how many times do you see Ryan Lindgren get injured and then miss some time? Sort of like Ryan Callahan before him. And then he's one of the rare guys that when he got injured during the playoffs, he went up the tunnel. He came back. He always came back. And that's what you need a guy like that. But then I looked at the stats. I'm trying to quantify it. He had 104 block shots. That's okay. That's good, but not great. He hits a good amount, but not all the time. You probably could end up replacing him. Who knows? Maybe he signs another 1-year deal next year, but he's probably going to want more. He probably knows that he wasn't going to be able to get that much for the Rangers this year. That's why they do the 1-year deal. And you just question one thing, and I threw this out in our group chat, Phil. If Adam Fox is going to be happy if they move on from him.
I don't think it's going to really matter much. I don't. Yeah, I think he understands the business, and he wants to be in New York. Like, he wanted to be in New York. He grew up a Ranger fan. Is he going to be happy that his best friend is gone? No, but I think he's going to go about his business.
Yeah, it's the business. Anthony, let's go to the New York Islanders. And Oliver Wahlstrom signed a 1-year, $1 million contract. So I don't know where that.
1 year.
I don't know where that too came from. So a 1-year, $1 million deal. Anthony, looking at the Wahlstrom numbers, in his first 2 years, his full seasons, 117 games, 25 goals, 22 assists, 47 points. The last 2 seasons, 67 games. That was a 35 and a 32 game season. 9 goals, 13 assists, and 22 points. And I know. I got it. Anyway, Wahlstrom will play 40 games with the New York Islanders this season.
I got to say, I was certain that he was going to be traded. With him signing, the Islanders are now $950,000 over the salary cap. So I'm curious to see, where they go from here, if this means he has a spot on the team, or, he's going to be competing with, Maxim Siplikov for that, for a spot. Although it seemed like he had a spot nailed down, because Lou Lamoriello said he didn't sign Siplikov to play in the AHL. He expects him to be a top 6 forward at the NHL level. So I'm curious to see what they do here, because if Wahlstrom makes the team, you can't simply waive Fashing. He only makes $775K. You'd still be over the cap, and another move would have to happen on top of that to get compliant if you kept Wahlstrom on the team. So I want to say Shot, but now I'm more leaning towards Beer. But then again, if Wahlstrom has a bad camp, you just waive him, and then you don't have to worry about the cap. You're under again. So, like I said earlier in the offseason, I was certain he'd be gone. And if you asked me this question, I would have said shot. But now that they signed him to the 1 year, $1 million contract, I'm gonna say beer. But I still think there's a chance he doesn't play 40 games with the Islanders next season.
Phil?
I'm going to say shot. I mean, this contract is kind of confusing to me because it doesn't seem like he can really give them anything anymore. I think it's kind of just – I think he kind of is what he is at this point. I mean, I'm not trying to, crap on him and call him a bust or anything like that, but I pretty much think that's what he is. I unless there's some unforeseen spike in his development, I don't see where he goes from here. I think they may have just given that contract to him just maybe – for trade purposes. I'm really not even sure, to tell you the truth, what the logic was for this, because he doesn't really fit as a bottom six forward. And he's not good enough to be a top six forward at this point. So where is he playing? I just don't see it, So I'm going to say shot on this.
Just to speed everything up, Phil, I agree with you 100%. I do have to say that, and that shot was for me, not you. I'm going shot on this as well. I've used this phrase for Capo Caco. I'm going to use it for Oliver Wahlstrom. This is a marriage that needs to end. Like there is nobody that's happy with this. And I mean, I just don't know where they're going to play him either. I mean, what are you going to do with him? How are you going to give him ice time? Oliver Wahlstrom is a goal scorer. He needs to go find a bad team, play his way up, and then who knows what's going to happen for the rest of his career. I think there's more talent there.
The only thing I'll say real quick before you move on, Mark, is that maybe – so, he was coming off a torn ACL. That's a very tough injury to come back from. And I feel like to get back to form, you have to play. You have to get the minutes. You have to get back into it, and you got to play. He barely played last season because he couldn't find himself into the lineup. Maybe Patrick Waugh wants to give him one last shot to see what he could do with more playing time, and that if his knee is back, and to give him a true opportunity. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, because he didn't get a chance to play last year, and like I said, the only way you're going to really come out of a serious injury like that is getting back into it and playing, and he didn't. So maybe Waugh wants to give him one last shot. I don't know.
Well, and by the way, Anthony, good job getting the last word, because I did want you to say one more thing first. Although I was going to move on also. So either way, good job. Guys, Matvei Michkov threw out the first pitch at a Phillies game this week. Anthony, I'll start with you on this one. Matvei Michkov will be a Calder finalist this year.
You know what? I'm gonna say round. I mean, not that the rookie class is weak by any means this coming season, but he's highly regarded. This is a guy that's going to get minutes to play in Philadelphia. I know. Well, although sometimes I know Tortorella could be hard on younger guys, but I think he'll be given an opportunity to play some meaningful minutes if he shows in camp that he can handle it. And if that happens and he plays with some pretty good players, I think he has a chance to have a pretty successful rookie season. So I'm not going to say round, but I'll go with a strong beer here.
Oh, you did say round on that one, so my bad. Milk, what do you think?
This is an interesting rookie class this year. You're going to have guys like Macklin Celebrini. Dallas is going to have two guys that'll probably be up for it with Maverick Bourque, who looks like he could be the real deal, and Logan Stankoven, who would still be up for it.
Yes.
Celebrini and Smith in San Jose are big ones, and Cutter Gauthier in Anaheim. I mean, he's going to be surrounded by a ton of talent in Anaheim. He's probably going to get some big minutes for them too. I wonder if Josh Doan could be a sleeper. I mean, I don't think he'll win it, but I do think that he's going to get some votes. I mean, he did look good in limited action with the Coyotes this past season. There's a lot of competition. I'm going to go Beer just because I do think that there is a pretty good chance. And Mitchkov is going to have some good talent around him too. I mean, some good young talent. What happens if he plays with a guy like Owen Tippett? Like two really strong goal scorers like that on one line. If they have a center on that line that can get them the puck, that line could do some damage.
I got to say this. I'm going to go with a round, and I know it's a little bit tough to just quantify that so far, guys. But I'll tell you this: turn him loose. That guy's got electrifying talent, and you know what? Just let him play. Worry about coaching him a little bit on the defensive end later on. That's why Tortorella kind of just let him cook. Let him go do his thing. Here's a bit of news that you guys threw out yesterday, and it came out about the Carolina Hurricanes. Eric Staal signs a one-day contract with the Carolina Hurricanes. He's second in Hurricanes history in goals, assists, and points. Anthony, who is he second to?
Ron Francis?
Ron Francis is the answer. So Eric Staal is the second best player in Hurricanes and Whalers history. Guys, I'll start this one off. I'm buying around on this one. Look, I know you got Rod Brindamore, but there's kind of not much else to talk about in Whalers / Hurricanes history. So he's not Ron Francis, and he carried that team through very lean years. So I'll turn it over to you, Phil. Who do you think?
It's a tough call. I mean, Francis had 1,175 points in 1,186 games for the franchise. Didn't win a cup with them. He had some really good seasons with them, including a 100-point season in 1989-90. That was one of their highest scoring seasons in franchise history before for Eric Staal's season as well. It's tough for me because Francis really put this team on the map, but Staal helped bring them to the promised land, and Francis didn't do that. Francis unfortunately ran into a team with probably going on 10 Hall of Famers because Pavel Datsyuk finally got into the Hall of Fame. All 10 Hall of Fame talents on one team. Just that's the most on one roster ever, I believe. So yeah, I'm gonna go. I gotta go round here just because I do think that Francis is more important to the franchise than Staal is. Without Francis, you don't have Staal. So I'll go round on this. He's second behind Francis.
All right, guys, I gotta go. I gotta get to work. But covering a shift tonight at Boss Croakers. Come on down. It's wing night. 40-cent wings. $4 Miller Lights. And I think we got $2 tacos. So talk to you guys later.
All right.
See you later, Mark.
See you later, Marcus.
See you later. Yeah, I would go round on this too. I mean, he won a cup with them. I mean, he was a Hurricane for a really long time. And I mean, what are the names really come to mind? I mean, Francis is ahead of him for sure, but after that, I mean, they've had good players. I mean, but I don't think anybody that can, unseat Staal as number two. I mean, Blaine Stoughton had 2 50-goal seasons, but he didn't play long. He didn't play very long for Hartford. I mean, Pat Verbeek was a good player, but I wouldn't say he was a better Whaler than Staal. So I'll say round as well here.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough for Staal to be put over Francis, and I don't think Brindamore is as good as Brindamore was. I don't think he was there long enough. And I think he was still a very good player, but after 2007, after that last Selke win, he kind of went downhill real quick. So I do think that I do think he has a case for third, but that can wane with time. So we'll move on to our next one. And this is an interesting one for me because this has been kind of like a little bit of a drama saga, if you will, between Tampa Bay and Steven Stamkos and what happened. So Jake Gensel will outproduce Steven Stamkos this season. Sorry, I did a little bit of an editing thing there, but because Marc wanted to put on the power play, I think that's too niche for me. But Jake Gensel will outproduce Steven Stamkos this season.
It's tough. It's tough because Stamkos was still playing at a pretty high level last year. In Nashville, he's going to be surrounded by good players as well. Newly acquired Marchessault, Philip Forsberg. But then again, Gensel, he's got Point, he's got Kucherov. So, yeah, this is honestly a tough one. I'm gonna say Beer. I could see Gensel scoring to the 40 goal level again. In which case, I don't know if Stamkos gets there in Nashville. If you're talking strictly goals, but I think it can go. That'd be like a cop out, but I think it can go either way. But I'll say Beer on this one.
Yeah, Jake Gensel is really a left wing, and you gotta wonder: did they stack that line with Point, Kucherov, and Gensel, or does Gensel play with Cirelli? I mean, Stamkos is going to have talent around him in Nashville. They're clearly going for it. They are not moving backwards. And I think Barry Trotz has finally realized that they needed an offensive upgrade. So they went ahead and they got a guy who thought they could still probably be an 80 to 90 point guy maybe for a couple of years. I'm going to go Beer just because I think this is going to be too close. I think Stamkos is going to get somewhere between 80 and 85 points. And I think Gensel is going to end up replacing Stamkos on the power play. And obviously, I've said for years that Tampa has the perfect formation where you have the dueling one-timers on their offhands between Kucherov and Stamkos from the left and right side. You have had at the point. You have Point in the bumper spot. And then you could go put, whoever else you wanted in whatever position, whether it was Palat or whoever else was playing with the unit. I wonder what they do with Gensel because he's played Point. He's played on the point in Pittsburgh. He's also a bumper guy. Does Braden Point move around? I think Braden Point could possibly move around. But for me, I just wonder how it's going to work. They'll figure it out. John Cooper's too smart to not figure it out.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm going to go Beer because I just see this being so close that
it is. It's going to be tight.
So, so I'll stick with a Beer on that one. And we'll move on from this one. Columbus Blue Jackets hired Dean Evason as a head coach. He went 147, 77, and 27 with the Minnesota Wild. And Dean Evason is the right coach to change the culture in Columbus.
I really thought they were going to go with McClellan or Woodcroft, personally. And nothing against Evason, but I think those two guys are a better head coach. Now, when it comes to changing the culture, I mean, he certainly has some work to do there in Columbus. I feel like that room needs a little bit of a kind of a new voice. I mean, you got a couple of cast of characters in there that could be maligned. I mean, Kent Johnson wasn't really utilized very well, so I don't know how high his confidence is, even if they just re-signed him. Gaudreau kind of hasn't been the same player since he went to Columbus, so there's going to be things he has to go through to really get the potential out of all these guys. But I still say McClellan should have been the guy. But Then again, obviously I'm not the Blue Jackets brass. I'm not the one doing the interview, so clearly, they know better than I. But that just would have been my pick. So I'll go beer on this one. But hopefully at the very least he could go in there, push the right buttons, and the Blue Jackets could at least start to take the next couple of steps up the rung to be closer to that playoff line.
I'm going to go bold here. I'm actually going to say round. If you were asking me who the better fit was, who the better coach was, I would have told you McClellan. I would have wanted the experienced guy, the vastly experienced guy, been well traveled to go in there. And McClellan's proven that he can turn teams into winners. He's been successful almost everywhere that he's gone. He just hasn't gotten his team to the top, and that's been the only smear on his record, really. But Evason got a lot out of a Minnesota team that didn't have a great roster up and down. That was really hampered by some major cap issues that he ended up having to inherit, unfortunately. So I think that Evason can really make a difference in that locker room there. And from what I've heard and read about Evason, the exit interviews were good. There was nothing that was really said anything. No one really said anything bad about him or even implied anything bad. I do think that they need a new voice, and I do think that he can be the right guy to come in and whip these guys in shape. You're right. Gaudreau hasn't been the same. Kent Johnson, I even said it on opening night, like, how are you scratching Kent Johnson after he scored 40 points? That was just, to me, I knew that was just the stein of things that come with Pascal Vincent. And that didn't last, obviously. So, yeah, I think Evason could come in and really make a difference in that locker room and help things out in Columbus. We're going to move on, though. June 29th, 2022. Traded by the Los Angeles Kings with a first-round draft pick, Liam Ogren, in 2022 to the Minnesota Wild for Kevin Fiala. Do you have any idea who I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Who would that be?
Brock
Correct.
Faber.
Brock Faber signed an 8-year, $68 million deal. Remember this whole conversation we were having before about paying players for potential, giving them their money early? Well, we're back. So Minnesota does that with Brock Faber, and Brockstar, as some are calling him in Minnesota, kind of a little bit of a ripoff of what they're doing in Vancouver with Brock Besser. But Brockstar gets his big money deal. And do you think Minnesota thoroughly, Mark, your words are very confusing there. I don't know why you need the emphasis on thoroughly. Please don't do that in articles because that's not something that publications want you to do. Minnesota, let's just say Minnesota hands down won the Fiala Faber trade.
Yeah, I feel like he's trying to imply that, like, almost like a fleecing, like you just said, they won hands down. And while Brock Faber scoring 47 points in his rookie year as a defenseman is outstanding, I think he's going to be a thoroughbred, to kind of play off his word there, for the Wild for years to come. But you can't discount the fact that Kevin Fiala had back-to-back 70-point seasons for LA. So let's not act like LA got a player that hasn't helped them, because Fiala has been an impactful player for the Kings. He's been one of their top scorers. So for me to say like a round on this, I can't with confidence, because the Kings got a really good player too that's been producing. So again, I'm gonna go beer here. But with that said, based on his age and the position that he plays and how well he played in the first season in the league, the Wild have a stud on their hands here with Brock Faber. I mean, he's going to lead their defense for years to come. I just don't think it was this big, huge win by Minnesota, as he's kind of implying here. So I'm going to stick with a beer there. Kevin Fiala has had really good seasons.
Yeah, this comment is really it right here, THG. It's not a forced perk for Erat trade like Mark seems to be wanting to imply here. I don't know, LA got fleeced. They've got a guy that in 151 games has scored 145 points. Now, that's pretty damn close to a point per game. That's like a hot streak away. He had a little bit of a down season this year, scoring 73 points, 29 goals, which is actually his second highest total in the league, in 82 games, after a season in which he had 23 goals and 72 points in 69 games. Like, how is that getting shafted? Not only that, but Fiala's still in his prime years. Like, he's still right in his prime right now, just turned 28 a week ago. So it's not like he's old and he's going to decline rapidly soon. Like, this guy is going to be a very good offensive player to, for a very long time still. And I'm going to highlight this comment here from Firestone. To be fair to Marc, signing PLD to that deal doesn't speak. But that has nothing to do with this trade, though. I get
it has nothing to do with the trade.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with anything. So I don't understand why we're going to make parallels to a bad deal when this deal has nothing to do with that deal. I don't see it. To me, I just don't. So I'm going to say a shot here because Marc is implying that there is a fleecing going on, like Erad for Forsberg, and that's just not the case. Yeah. So Marc shot layup. We should get the gift for this one. Get the easy one because Marc decided to mess up here. I don't know what he was thinking. You know what? Honestly, I think that Marc just probably thought about LA and Pierre-Luc Dubois, and then decided to go on one of his little tangents where he just goes off for whatever reason because he comes across a subject that triggers him, and he decided to make this up. So, Marc, you get an F for that one, buddy. But Faves is going to be the captain with the Wild for 5 years. I don't listen. That's not a layup. I'm sorry, it's not a layup. It's just Faber is going to be a very good player. He's probably going to make Team USA at some point in his career. He's going to be a very good player for a very long time. But that doesn't mean that they somehow hands down won this trade because they had to give up a guy that scored 80 points the year before and then score a point per game essentially with LA. Stop. This is really it. Here he saw the LA teams, and then he thought of Talbot and PLD and the Ebola comments, and then he just decided to go on a rant. You know how Don LaGreca goes on his rants on ESPN radio? Yeah. That's what Marc does when he thinks of LA and Talbot and Pierre-Luc Dubois. He just goes, why? And all that other stuff. I could just you could take LaGreca's body, put Marc's face on it, and then just jumble around the words to LA and Talbot and Pierre-Luc Dubois. What other things really trick?
Jacob Chikrin. Jacob Chikrin.
Jack Eichel.
Yeah.
Jack Eichel's another one. You can do that. You can change any of those names around, any of the teams, and you can literally go into a Don LaGreca rant.
Yes. Oh man. Well, I think that's the end of our bar talk. I think that's the last topic that he had.
Yeah.
So
that is the last topic we had. So I don't know how much time, Anthony, you have for a little Q&A.
I can go. Yeah, I can go for a little bit. Yeah.
All right.
That's another one.
Julian Gauthier. That's another one you can add to that list. You can stop. You honestly, I get it. I'm not saying you guys miss Fiala. What I'm saying is that Fiala is a good player and is still a very good player and is a first liner on almost any team in the NHL. So you gave up a first liner to get a young stud defenseman. It's a win-win trade for both teams. No matter what anyone says, both teams have come out better for this trade.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Prove me wrong if you can. Please, I challenge somebody to prove me wrong. Because and I'll sit here and I'll wait. Time's not my side on this one. So please, if you got a way to do it, go right ahead. You want to talk about Liam Ogren? Okay. What has Liam Ogren done yet?
Yeah, he hasn't equated into this equation yet with the deal, so we'll have to see there. What do you think the Faber deal does for Noah Dobson?
It's a good question.
I don't know if it affects him that much because Dobson scored 70 points. So I think either way, before Faber's contract, Dobson was getting at least $8 million no matter what on his next deal. And I hope that Lou gets that done soon. But yeah, Dobson, whenever he does get paid, he's gonna make a lot of money. So I think $8 million is gonna be the number that he comes in at. We'll see if this deal with Faber, if his agent tries to use anything as a comparative. But either way, Dobson is like I said, he's going to get an 8-year deal, and he's going to be a multi-millionaire. Well, he already is. He's making $4 million or so, but he's gonna really be rolling in the dough on his next contract.
I think it's going to be interesting because you're going to have two guys from the same draft that are both big puck movers, big point producers that are going to be commanding some big money in Dobson and Bouchard, and they're basically right there drafted one another. So drafted after one another. So you're really, I don't know if this is going to have anything to do with that, just because of the fact that teams, when they look at this deal, they're going to look at it and they're going to see that they're paying for potential here. So I don't think that's going to be a problem per se. I think $8 million is, you're probably about right. I think the Islanders would want to probably keep him more towards 7, but I think Dobson's camp is going to ask for 8 to 8.5, somewhere in that range. I think they'll meet somewhere that they'll be probably closer to 8. I just wonder who gets more. Is it Bouchard because he had the 80-point season? I mean, he had 82 points in 81 games this year. Like, not many point per game defensemen in this league. That's a disgusting.
And he also played in the Stanley Cup playoffs, the finals, and had a lot of points in the playoffs too. So I think he has that over Noah Dobson right now. But then again, Evan Bouchard plays with the likes of, McDavid and Draisaitl on the power play. So, he's around more talent as well. But either way, they're both going to get large contracts, and they're going to be on their respective teams for a long time.
And you know what Bouchard did in the playoffs, right?
Oh yeah, he was fantastic.
He became the first defenseman to score 30 points in a postseason since who?
Ooh, that's tough. 30 points of defenseman since. Let's see, last couple of cup winners.
This person came just short of the record too.
How long ago was it?
Within the last 30 years.
Last 30 years. Brian Leetch?
Correct. Brian Leetch, 1994, 34 points to lead the Stanley Cup playoffs in scoring, one of the most dominant postseasons ever by a defenseman. The record, I believe, is Paul Coffey's 37, I think is the record for a defenseman in the playoffs, if I'm correct. But yeah, that's just a disgusting performance in the playoffs from Evan Bouchard. And yeah, you can talk about McDavid, Draisaitl, but do these guys do what they're doing without Bouchard's contributions? That's really my question. Like, I think there's obviously a big time benefit for those two, for Bouchard to play with those two on a power play. No doubt about that. But My question is, it's 37 for Coffee in 1985 is the record, actually.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's 3 points. That's correct. But yeah, it's for me, like it's one hand washes the other in these scenarios because you got to have some level of talent to play with those guys and to quarterback that power play the way it does. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
It's not easy.
No.
So
no, it's not. I mean, you're not going to put any random defenseman. They're not going to do the same thing that Bouchard did. No one's going to argue that. But like I said, it does help Bouchard when you have two of the best offensive players in the game on the ice with them on the same power play unit. But he's going to get. I mean, he's going to probably get at least 9, I would say, based on the regular season that he had and the playoffs. I think he might be looking. The only knock you could say in Bouchard, and you could really say the same thing about Dobson too, is that they're not the strongest defenders in their own end. They're more offensive defensemen. That's really the knock on both of them. But like I said, go back to what I said before, they're going to be staples on their teams for a long time. They're both going to get long-term extensions.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that there's definitely some work that needs to be cleaned up in their own zone. And I think if the two of them could do that, they'd be absolute forces. They're big guys that can skate well, move the puck well.
Yep.
They have big shots. They can run power plays. I mean, they're almost like the prototypical NHL defenseman right now. You think about it. Yeah. The NHL for years, ever since I would say, I mean, the first guy I could think of that was really like a good skater and a great skater with size on the back end was Larry Robinson. And everybody wanted the next Larry Robinson. But ever since Eric Lindros came along, there's been much more of an emphasis on drafting defenders with size that can skate. And I think even over the last, I would say, 15 or so years, I think there's an even further emphasis on it, seeing guys like Aaron Ekblad and so on. Oh, yeah. I see. You started one, didn't you, Anthony?
Yeah.
That's a loaded
question.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. We're going to get to that in a second. But I just want to address this one real quick. Igor for Askarov. Okay. Yes, they're crazy. 1. And then 2, Nashville is not going to do that because they just re-signed Saros. They just re-signed their franchise goaltender. That's not going to happen.
That doesn't work.
If they want to trade for Askarov, okay, fine. And then they want to deal Igor after that, okay. You know what? I'd actually be on board with that. Call me crazy, but I would be on board for trading for Askarov and moving Igor if they can't come to a reasonable contract with Igor. You have your young goaltender that's ready to take over. It's insurance. You have a backup already in Quick that you can lean on in leverage situations if necessary. And then you have Garand in the system too. I'd be all for this. And I don't think Askarov is going to last long in Nashville. I think now he knows that his writing's on the wall, and eventually he's going to request a deal out. He's the perfect target for the Rangers.
Yeah, why would he want to stay in Nashville when Saros is there for the next 8 years? It doesn't make any sense. Especially for a guy like him who has the high pedigree. He wants to be a starter somewhere. So he's gonna get moved. It's only a matter of time. The question is when. Yeah.
No, I totally agree with that. I think he would be the perfect target for the Rangers. I think it's something that they should explore. I absolutely do. Yeah. And you know what? Like I said, you can't win with giving an absurd contract to a goaltender. Don't do it if you don't have to.
I don't think so.
So if I'm the Rangers, I'm looking into that one. Christopher Ellis Drury, please get on the phone with Nashville right now and see what it costs to get Askarov. Because then you can move Igor and have leverage against Igor. So we're going to highlight this one because this was the loaded question that Anthony was referring to. So who are the worst draft picks ever for the Rangers and Islanders? Are we talking biggest busts? Or are we?
Yeah, I know, because I mean there are tons of players that teams take that never make it to the NHL that just are nobodies. You don't even remember their names. So is it someone that was supposed to have some level of decent success that turned out to be nothing? Like Justin Mapletoft for the Islanders. I mean, you're talking, Christian Kudrock. He was a really high pick that never panned out for the Islanders. There's Robert Nilsson instead of Zach Parise. I mean, although he wasn't like terrible. This is a good one. Ryan O'Mara, who was in the Ryan Smith trade.
2005 first rounder.
Yeah, that was another guy. There's been tons of
though. He was a 5th round pick in a bad draft.
He was, but I remember at the time the Islanders were kind of like viewing him as a guy who was one of their better prospects and was going to step in and be a successful player, and he never was. Michael Del Cole, that's another good one. Griffin Reinhart. Talk about a bust. Yeah. There's tons of guys.
For me, what the worst part for the Islanders is you draft. Not only did you draft Nilsson, but the guys that they passed on after Nilsson in that draft is what hurts a lot. And the same thing for the Rangers with Jessamine in that same draft. Like, you have to look back at that draft, look at those two guys, realize how badly the Rangers it's Jessamine for sure.
Yeah.
That's got to be Jessamine for sure. I mean, Robert Nilsson, you look at the guys drafted right after him. Zach Parise, Ryan Getzlaf, Brent Burns, Ryan Kessler, Mike Richards, Corey Perry. And the same thing for the Rangers in that draft.
Yeah, that 2003 draft was absolutely loaded. This is a good point from David, because Griffin Reinhart got turned into Barzal and Beauvillier, essentially.
Yeah. But can you really hold Griffin Reinhart though? If you ended up getting Matt Barzal and Anthony Beauvillier out of that, or do we have to attribute that to terrible general managing by Don Sweeney in drafting Zach Senyshyn, Trent Frederick, and who was the other one? Jake DeBrusk, right? 3 picks in a row, 2015.
It was 3 picks in a row. I thought it was Jacob Zabrol.
Maybe he was Zabrol that I'm thinking of then. Yeah.
I gotta look. Yeah, Zabrol. Or terrible GMing.
There's an argument for the Rangers for Ron Duguay. You drafted Ron Duguay to let him go, and then Mike Bossy goes 2 picks later. That is one of the best goal scorers of all time.
Yeah, that's a bad one too.
Dylan McElrath.
What about Bobby Sanguinetti?
To have
that's another one.
Peru go the pick immediately after.
Yeah.
Dustin Brown was taken. I that's why I said Dylan McElrath. Yes, the Undertaker, as he was referred to in junior hockey, because of his fighting. And because let's go make a panic pick and overreact to losing 2 games in a home series, losing 1 game in a home series, and the final game in a shootout against Philly, in which the coach didn't want to shoot Marian Gaborik, but shot Ole Jokinen instead. So, let's go out and draft Dylan McElrath when the club clearly needed offensive firepower.
Yeah, that didn't make any much sense.
Bad decision by bad front office, comes back to haunt them, hurts them for a generation. Great. Thanks. I'm not even going to start this, actually. I'm going to just go right to this. When are Othman and Perreault playing for the Rangers? I tweeted this out today on Twitter. I think Brett Berard has a better chance of making this team than Brennan Othman. better 5-on-5 production in the AHL, a faster skater. He is a pest. So he's a pain in the ass to play against. And he ends up, he plays a style that fits this team more for the bottom six right now. I don't think this team wants to do the same thing that they did with Capo Caco and Alexis Lafreniere to Brennan Hoffman. I think they want to give him a chance to come in and play a bigger role right off the bat. So I think Brett Berard is going to be the guy that makes it this year over Hoffman. And Perreault, I don't think you're going to see him for at least 2 years.
Yeah, Perreault, I think undoubtedly he's their best prospect, and I think he has the potential to be a really, really good NHL player. But I think the Rangers are going to take their time with him because right now there's no need to rush him. They don't need him. They don't need him in the lineup this coming season. You know, let him go back to college. Let him chase a national championship, further develop. You know, get stronger, and then come in maybe another year or so. But I think a lot of times it's important to take your time with guys who are pure goal scorers that play at the collegiate level. Not everybody's going to be a Cole Caulfield and essentially come in right away and score goals. So everybody takes a different path to the league. And fortunately for the Rangers, they have time with Perreault. They don't need him in the lineup right now.
Yeah, that's my stance on it. Like, this organization, obviously, since the life of this channel, we've talked how many times about the problems with player development with this organization. Like, I feel like it's beating a dead horse at this point. I imagine you would agree with that.
Yes.
So I don't think they need to go ahead and rush Gabe Perreault. I think Gabe Perreault has some work to do to beef up a little bit. I think he has some work to do on his skating and his strength and his conditioning. And then I think that when he's ready, then they should bring him up and let him do whatever. But yes, he needs to be slow cooked. You can't rush a roast or else you end up making charcoal. Couldn't agree more with that.
No, you're absolutely right.
You go ahead with this one, Anth.
This comment?
That one. Yeah.
I don't think Crosby's leaving Pittsburgh, and if he did, honestly, I think he would prefer to go to Colorado and play with his friend Nathan McKinnon. But I don't see Crosby leaving, especially to go to the Rangers. I mean, I think the Penguins are his team for the rest of his career. Like you said, a small chance he did leave Colorado, but although I mean Crosby in a Ranger uniform would be, incredible to see, even at his age. I mean, he's Sidney Crosby, but I think that's a pipe dream. I think 87's playing for Pittsburgh, then that's it.
I would agree. If they didn't have any Trocheck, I would say this would make a lot of sense. But if you acquire him, what does that do to the center depth? And yeah, it improves it big time. But I feel like you're going to create some issues with that. Who gets moved to the wing? Does Trocheck get moved to the wing? Does he move down to third line center? He'd be one of the best third line centers in the NHL, like bar none. But I just have serious questions and doubts about that ever happening. I also don't see the Rangers and the Penguins making a trade like that. Like Riley, I know they just made a trade for Riley Smith, but let's step back a second and be real here. Riley Smith is not Sidney friggin' Crosby. And Crosby is probably the second or the third most important name in Pittsburgh Penguins history behind Mario Lemieux. So whether you want to argue him and Yager at 2, go ahead. Have fun for all I care. But what kind of message does that send to the fans that you're going to deal your star player to one of your probably your biggest rival right now? Because the Flyers-Penguins rivalry is not the same right now. And with all the stuff that's gone on with Jacob Trouba over the past 2 years since that playoff series, there's still a very horrible taste in Pittsburgh's mouth when it comes to the New York Rangers. So they're probably their biggest rival right now. And if that happened, the fans would threaten mutiny and maybe start riots in the middle of a steel factory in Pittsburgh somewhere.
Honestly, I was just gonna say if Kyle Dubas traded Crosby to the Rangers, I think he would get death threats sent to his house by Penguins fans. I think it would go that far. I mean, the guy comes into the guy is 1 year into the Penguins organization, comes in and trades away their beloved Crosby to the New York Rangers. Forget about it. The guy that would be the end of his career. But honestly, call us a hot take. It's just a gut. You know, you've kind of heard talks about Crosby and an extension. As you guys all know, he wears 87. His birthday is on August 7th, 8/7. There's something tells me that the Penguins are going to announce Crosby's extension on August 7th in another week. I just have that. I just have that feeling.
You know what year he's born in too, right?
So, yeah, 87. 1987.
Yeah, and you know what? Remember when he took that first big contract? What was his AAV?
Yes, 8.7.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So don't be surprised
maybe there's a little fun with numbers here, and we see a Crosby extension. Maybe it's not 8 years, but we see an $8.7 million AAV announced for Sidney Crosby, which would actually be pretty. I still think that would kind of be a steal, considering that he was a 90-point player this year.
Yeah,
I mean, this guy's incredible. Yeah, you hate 94 points, 42 goals. Like, when is this guy ever going to slow down? Like, we think, oh, he's done. He's gonna age into. And you know what? We've talked about it in the past, and I brought this up, the whole 37 into 38 year, and that's when players start to really, even the great ones, start to slow down. But no offense to Marc Messier, Wayne Gretzky, Jaromir Jagr, or any of those guys. Sidney Crosby, to me, is a next level talent, and he's also a next level athlete in terms of physical conditioning. And you know what's funny? Like, we talked about over the years how, like, he lost a little bit of speed, but he gained that balance, core strength, and that ability to ward players off of him effortlessly. Effortlessly, if I could say the damn word. But yeah, Crosby changed his game around, and he has become so much of just an incredible all-around player. Does this guy win a Selke trophy at any point in the next few years? Because Bergeron's gone. Kopitar looks like he's starting to hit that decline a bit.
On the downward slope.
So, can you see it?
Yeah, I could see it. The guy's like, he takes care of his body so well. You're just talking about his balance and his quads. Talk about quadzilla. I mean, his quads are massive. Yeah, like he's, this is a guy that I think we could all agree. Earlier in his career, he really did whine a lot. He really did complain a lot. There's no doubt about that. That's why he got being a crybaby and all that. But I personally gained a lot of respect for him over the years as he matured and he's gotten older. He's done a lot for the game. I can't dislike the guy anymore. Like I think he's not only is he a different player, it feels like he's a different person too. And by all accounts, he's a great person. He goes to deliver season tickets to fans, and like you hear about all these things. Like, he'll take his time taking pictures and photos. Like, he really embraced being an ambassador of the game. And I think that's why he's even more beloved in Pittsburgh. So, yeah, moral of the story is the guy's not going anywhere. And, I would imagine, I don't know about you, in terms of term, 3 years at this point in his career. I mean, at his age, I would say 4 years probably. But they're going to leave it up to him. If he says he wants to play 5 more years, Dubas will give him 5 years. I think it's really up to him on the term.
I agree with almost every single word you just said there, almost verbatim. I think Crosby is the type of player that if he said to a general manager, I could give you 5 more great years, I would take him at his word and be like, okay, here's your contract.
Yeah. Yep.
I really think he's just that talented and in that great of shape to the point where he could do that. I don't see him having that precipitous fall off, that drastic drop off that other players have had at that age. Like Gretzky in his age 37 season was a 90-point player on a bad Rangers team that missed the playoffs in 97, 98. Crosby, I could still see him being a 90-point player again this year. I could see him doing it the year after.
Absolutely.
It's years 3, 4, and 5 if he gets a 5-year deal, where I wonder how much points exactly he would have. But it also depends on the team around him. Does Malkin stay? Does he stay healthy? Does Letang have that big drop off? I mean, it's the other guys, and like you said, I do think that Colorado would be the place for him to go if he goes anywhere, because obviously his relationship with Nathan McKinnon is one of his best friends. So yeah, I would see that. And then you're also right about the respect factor. I respect this guy to no end, and I do agree with you that he's a different person now. Like, you don't see the whining. You don't see him get heated often. He's leveled out, like, with time and age, and you don't see him whining to the refs as much. Like, yeah, everybody does it. Everybody will have their gripe with a ref missing a call. Everybody does it. But it's not the way that it was years ago when, like, he was getting his teeth knocked out by Darian Hatcher, and then he was going to the ref afterwards and being, what the hell are you doing? And basically cursing out the referee for missing that. So, but I do agree. I think he's become an ambassador of the game, and just like Jágr, like I say hate, but sports hate for me is different from real hatred. Sports hate, wrong dislike, and the fact that you kill my team and I hate you for that. So, like, I hate Crosby in that regard. Absolutely. So I hate him in that regard, but I respect the talent, I respect the work, and I respect the person. So
absolutely, well said.
But how long do you just pick one? Was that you or was that me?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
That was you. Okay.
Yeah, I think the most fun, especially is that he paid for so many kids to play hockey and get their equipment. And last year was the first time he played against one of his kids. That was beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
he's so when you talk about presences in Pittsburgh, and this is not a knock on Jaromir Jágr, but I don't remember Jaromir Jágr being in the community the way that Crosby was. And I know people. Listen, my aunt gushed over Jaromir Jágr and the chance to get to work with her. There was a story that she told me. I think I'm pretty sure I told you and Marc this. I'm not sure if I talked about this on air, but she was at one of the events, and I believe it was casino night one year, and she was responsible for getting those types of events together with her job. She worked almost directly under Jim Dolan. So,
that's pretty high up.
Yeah, she was very, very high up. You remember Barry Watkins?
The name sounds familiar. Yes,
he used to play hockey with us. The older redheaded guy with the glasses.
Yeah,
quads.
Rapid fire.
Yep.
Yeah.
Barry was senior vice president of public relations. Barry was very high up. If you look at the video of Brian Leach going to get the Conn Smythe Trophy, there's a red-headed guy with glasses that tells him, "Hey, your turn to go get that trophy." That's Barry. So Barry very high up, and Barry, my aunt, knew each other. And my aunt told a story about, I think it was casino night, and there was a drunk guy that was like running or walking around, kind of being a little belligerent, and this guy knocked my aunt down. And Jaromir Jagr, being the teddy bear that he is, apparently from according to my aunt, went up and grabbed this guy by the back of his coat jacket and wanted to absolutely obliterate this guy into the floor. And I wouldn't have believed this if I hadn't heard it from somebody I trusted, but she literally had to stop him from doing that. And so
That's awesome.
So Jaromir Jagr, I mean, he's a quality guy, and we've seen this from the last half of his career and his NHL comeback and how good of a guy he is. But Sidney Crosby, if you ask anybody in Pittsburgh who the greatest presences in the community have been in Pittsburgh, they'll probably tell you Mario Lemieux is one. They'll probably tell you Crosby's two.
I agree with that. Yeah. And it's fitting because Crosby lived with Lemieux during his first couple of years. So what better, what better mentor than Mario Lemieux in that regard?
Yeah, and Mario is Mr. Pittsburgh. I don't think there's anyone else that you really could say could be Mr. Pittsburgh. You can't. I mean, obviously Roberto Clemente, rest in peace. Barry Bonds got traded to the Giants and made his mark in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I mean, Willie Stargell, maybe no.
Willie Stargell, yeah, no. I think Crosby Lemieux. I mean, Terry Bradshaw. Yeah.
I mean, who else would really be the guy from any Pittsburgh sports? It's got to be Lemieux and Crosby, 1 and 2 there.
Yeah.
Mean Joe Green is a good one, but I mentioned Bettis before, but it's different.
Certainly not Antonio Brown.
No, let's not go there. Let's not go there. That guy is he's a character, to say the least.
Yeah.
You got some starred comments.
What do you think? Some about 10 more minutes?
Yeah, probably about 10 more minutes is good. But we'll get off that. So
all right,
from
I'm just gonna grab some quick, but that sounds good.
All right, so I'll answer this while Anthony is doing his thing. Random question, not related to anything, but do we think Tuukka Rask is a Hall of Famer? He's got a Vezina in 2014. He's got a Stanley Cup, but he was a backup for it. Whoa, okay. Technically, Hockey Reference doesn't have him as a Stanley Cup winner. That's really weird because he was on that team. He was the backup, played 29 games. I'm not sure of what the rules are. I don't know if his name is on that Stanley Cup or not. I mean, I'd imagine if Hockey Reference is saying that he's not a Stanley Cup winner, that his name is not on that cup. But he did win the Vezina in 2014. He won a Jennings Trophy in 2020. So he's led the NHL in save percentage once with a .931 save percentage in 45 games. So he's eligible for that number in 2010, which is a really good number. He had a really good 2010 season. Finished 4th in Calder voting that year. And then
Rask is a Hall of Famer.
308 wins, career .921 save percentage, career .228 goals against average. He's borderline for me.
Yeah. But then again, if he's borderline, I mean, like Bobrovsky. What about Bobrovsky? I mean, he's got a cup now. He's got 2 Vezinas. Is he more of a lock than Rask?
We got to factor in international play. That's like a big thing because that's something that often goes overlooked in these discussions. So it's not just the NHL Hall of Fame; it's the International Ice Hockey Hall of Fame, IIHF. He's got a bronze in 2014 for the Sochi Olympic Games and a bronze for the 2006 World Juniors. I think I may have to agree with Leo here. I think that if Rene is not in, then how does Rask get in?
Yeah.
369
I agree with that too.
243 goals against, 917 save percentage. Rask has a better goals against and save percentage, but he played a significant less amount of games. Same amount of Vezinas. For me, when I look at it, Rene was a Vezina finalist 3 other times outside of his win. In 2011,
he was one of the top goalies in the league.
2015. And he was a runner-up 2 of those times. Like the first runner-up 2 of those times. So for me, when you look at the voting, outside of Rask's Vezina win, he had one other year where he was a finalist in 2020. So I mean, he lost to who was the Vezina winner that year in 2020? Oh, he lost to Hellebuck. That was Hellebuck's first.
Hellebuck. Yep.
Yeah, Bobrovsky.
Another thing.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I was because another thing with Bobrovsky is right now he's 14th all time with 396 wins. You got to figure if he has, let's say, 35 wins this season, that's going to move him. I mean, that's going to move him all the way up to what would that be, 9th in, right by Jacques Plante. So so when it's all said and done, Bobrovsky very well may be, in the top, possibly in the top 5 of wins of all time if he plays, a few more years. So combine that with his cup, his Vezinas, I think at the end of the day he gets in.
Yeah, I think Bobrovsky will get in. Rene, another thing, his international resume is actually really good. So you got to factor in the Worlds, even though it's a lesser tournament than the Olympics. They do factor that in. So the 2014 Worlds, he was the most valuable player of the tournament, all-star team, and then he won best goalie at the World Championships in 2015. And then in 2020, he got voted to the IIHF all-time Finland team. Like, that's pretty damn impressive. Like, that's probably going to get Rene in.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'll eventually get in. I don't think he's going to be a first ballot guy. I think he will eventually get in. But I do agree with you on Bobrovsky, though. I think he's more than likely a lock. It's just how many wins does he accumulate for the rest of his career? He's 35 now. Does he get another 100 wins? Can he get another 100 wins? If he gets another 100 wins,
I guess depending on how long.
Surefire lock.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, so it's a 3. Again, I'm just using 35 as an arbitrary number, but 396 plus 35. That would give him 430 wins.
110. Oh, sorry, 105.
Yeah,
so my math is wrong there. So math. But
so if he had 35 wins this season, that alone would move him past Tony Esposito for 10th all time. So, and then from there, obviously, she keeps just going up. So, I think he's going to be a lock when it's all said and done.
I do think so too, and the fact that he's the only. Well, now he's one of 2 active goaltenders with multiple wins. I mean, and he won in a generation in which he dealt with Henrik Lundqvist and Carey Price.
Yep.
So, I mean, the fact that he got more Vezina wins than them, that's saying something there. But yeah, the cup was big for him.
Oh yeah.
The other thing you got to look at with Bobrovsky is, again, we got to talk about international play. So Sergei Bobrovsky, if I remember correctly, I think he's medaled at the Worlds and World Juniors. So he won gold with 2014 in Belarus. He won silver in 2015 in Czech Republic, and he won a bronze in 2016 in Russia, and he won a bronze 2008 with the Czech Republic. So he's got gold at the Worlds.
Yeah. Yes, he does.
That's big. He's not for me. Yeah, that's. So we're probably going to go like another 5 or so minutes. So get your questions in, and let us know here because, like I said, we're going to do another 5 minutes, and then we're going to be out.
Yeah. Well, the good thing, as I said at the top of the show, Phil, is that being that tomorrow is August 1st, that means it's just one more month without NHL hockey. That's it. One more month, and then come September, we have preseason hockey and training camp. So just 30 days, or how many days in August? 30, 31, but hockey's on the horizon. And, it's I think at this point in the off season, you're going. What? Why do you always share this? What does that mean?
He's made this comment before. What are you trolling, man? Do you not hear what we've just been talking about for this entire Q&A session?
Yeah,
we've been talking around the league about other things.
Yeah, that doesn't
make any sense.
No. Bill, how many of these remaining UFAs do you think find homes? Justin Schultz, James Van Riemsdyk, Tyson Barrie. Do you think these guys get PTOs, or do you think they land secured contracts at some point here?
You know what? I'm not gonna lie. I'm really surprised that nobody has picked up Tyson Barrie. Like there are teams that can use puck movers. Wow. I mean, I get he missed half the year and he only had 15 points in those 41 games for Nashville, but there is still a big time puck mover within Tyson Barrie. He finds the right spot. I really think that some team's going to enjoy a buy low, like a low buy, high reward type deal with him. So, thank you.
He moves the puck well. He could still play in a power play. I mean, he's not the best defensive guy, but I would think he would get a home. And same thing with like JVR. Obviously, he's nowhere near the player he once was, but he had 38 points last year. So like I feel like a guy like him, he might still be able to play in a bottom role somewhere. Like I'm surprised he hasn't found a home yet. As just a guy playing your second power play unit and maybe give some like third line minutes to. I think some of these guys may have to settle for PTOs. It is what it is at this point, but nonetheless, they're names that back a couple X amount of years ago used to be pretty good players. So we'll see if they can find homes between now and September.
Yeah, now really it's just kind of looking at fits. Like, I looked at Chicago has a lot of cap space left, and I mean they could probably use somebody like JVR in that lineup. I mean, they have 14 forwards under roster right now.
Yeah.
After like adding guys like Bertuzzi, but I mean, they could definitely benefit. I mean, they added Ilya Mikheyev, which is good.
Yeah.
I mean,
like another guy like Kevin Shattenkirk. I mean, does he find a home? Mike Hoffman. I mean, some of these guys aren't terrible, but they could still. You would think they would still be able to find a role somewhere. Kaylor Yamamoto. I mean, he's a younger guy. He's out there. So I think at this point some of these guys are going to have to settle for PTOs, and hopefully they can catch on. A lot of Islander fans were asking me what happens with Matt Martin and Cal Clutterbuck because they're both still unsigned. I think it might be the end of the road for those two. We'll see if they want to. Both those guys are kind of entrenched on Long Island. They're not guys that go live elsewhere in the summer. They stay on the island, and do they really want to move their families? So I'd be interested to see if any of them try to land somewhere, or it's the end of the road for them.
Yeah, the normal teams that you would think of that would be up for maybe like a puck moving defenseman or something like that, like maybe like a Chicago. Like they don't really need defensemen anymore. Seattle just added Montour, so they don't need. I mean, I'm looking at the teams with space, and a lot of these teams surprisingly have a lot of defensemen. I would wonder, because one fit that I look at would be possibly LA for a guy like Barry. And that could be insurance for a guy like Brant Clark. Let's just say if Brant Clark can come up and give them the offense that they need on that power play, like outside of Doughty. But I mean, they're pretty high on Clark, so I don't know if they're going to do something like that. St. Louis has had some issues with moving Torrey Krug in recent years. Like he didn't want to leave. So I mean,
and now he has that thing. Now he has the thing. If you saw, he's out. He's got like some sort of pre-arthritis thing that he's going to be out for a long time now. So they could use a guy like him, a guy like Barry or Schultz to kind of replace some offense from the back end.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually a good point. I heard something about that. I didn't really hear all the details. St. Louis still technically has his salary. It's still listed on cap wages. I don't know if they officially LTIR'd him yet or not. But
probably not.
Probably not. I mean, Carolina went back and brought back Shane Gostisbehere. I mean, their defense is pretty much set with their 6. So I can't see Barry going there. And another one that we haven't even talked about, John Klingberg.
Yeah, I remember hearing at the beginning of the free agent period that he wasn't going to sign anywhere yet because he wanted to get healthy first and kind of get himself ready before he committed somewhere. So I think he's focusing on getting healthy before he signs somewhere. But once he's ready, I would imagine he'll get an opportunity somewhere.
Yeah, Jacob Vrana's still out there too.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a guy when he has his head on.
Problems.
Yeah, when he has his head on straight, he could be a pretty good goal scorer. But again, he might be another guy that lands on a PTO. I get what State of Survival's trying to say here because he oddly enough, Clutterbuck played in all 82 games last year, which is really uncharacteristic for him. He's usually hurt, but I wouldn't say he's still very useful. I think he could. I still think he could be a veteran in the room and play some fourth line minutes here or there. I just don't know how much he has left in the tank. Because Phil, for a guy like always been hurt, you got to think playing in all 82 games last year with the style he plays has taken a lot out of him.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that. I don't know how much he really has left to give at this point. I mean, that body at that size and the way that he plays, I don't think that I don't know how much he has left. I really don't know how much he has to give. Can he be a 13th forward maybe? I guess. I don't know. But who's going to be willing to take the chance on that at this point for a guy that age, That's my question. But is Kakko on the team opening night? This is a good one.
I mean, Dan Rosen.
I was just going to allude to that. Go ahead.
Dan Rosen had said that he thinks that there's still likely that he's traded. So, you got to remember the Rangers only have like $680,000 worth of breathing room under the cap right now. So, if you move Kako, you get some flexibility there to do some other things. So it's certainly possible that he could be moved. I mean, Dan Rosen, guest of our show, knows what he's talking about. So if he's saying that, then yeah, there's a chance that he's moved.
Yeah, I think Dan's hearing something. And I know that Capo Caco for Trevor Ziegler straight up is not happening. And I know that they would have to move some other salary in order to get Ziegler's, to move other salary with Caco to get Ziegler's. But with that whole shoulder check event that went on, and Kreider kind of being like a fatherly figure over Ziegler's there and messing with him and stuff like that. And not only that, but Kreider works with Prentice skills coaching in the offseason. You know who else was there this offseason?
Trevor Zegras.
There may be some talks going on. I don't listen. I'm not the biggest fan of Trevor Zegras. I don't think that I don't see him as a winner, and I don't see him as a player that they need. But it does fall in line with Zibanejad's comments about we need a playmaker on our wing. Mm-hmm. We need a guy that can make plays. They need a winger. Zegras can play wing. Maybe his game is better suited for wing than it is for center. I would not say this. Let's be realistic here. Trevor Zegras has 2 60-point seasons under his belt.
Yes, he does.
Philip Heedle's got 1 40-point season. These two are not the same thing.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And now, I mean, with Heedle and we all know what he went through last year with his, apparent head injury. It's a scary thing. So, hopefully he's right and he's healthy and he can get his career back on track. But I mean, let's not try to downplay Zegras here and say that he's no better than a healthy Heedle, because that's not correct. Did you see this? Leo was saying, I don't know where he heard it, but Leo was saying he heard Kako to Colorado has been hearing all summer.
I haven't heard anything about that, but Leo, let me ask you, is this something you're hearing in your native land? Because sometimes they are words that go around that certain people hear and they get regurgitated over the seas on the other side of the pond. And sometimes they end up being true. Like, I don't know if anyone remembers this, but Frank Saravalli said that about 2 days before free agency, when the Rangers signed Artemi Panarin, that Artemi Panarin was going to go to the Rangers, when Bob McKenzie and everybody else said he was going with the Islanders with Sergei Bobrovsky. Leo is saying that he's been hearing it in Finland, and he thinks he says his source is solid. Listen, right. I can't speak for your source one way or another, for or against it. I'll take your word for that, and all I can do is take that at face value, and that's really it. Mm-hmm. We're not knocking you, obviously, but I don't really know what you've got with you, so I can't. Do I think that there's something out there? Possibly. I think if Dan Rosen's talking about seeing Kako gone, I think he's hearing something.
Yeah, I agree with that. Colorado could use another forward. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen with Landeskog, so I could see that happening. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm glad. Yeah, and I'm glad you understand that, Leo, because we're not here to slight anybody. I mean, Anthony's in the media and he hears things, and they end up not getting done. I'll give you a little example. Anthony, you remember this pretty vividly because you were the one that heard it, because you were down on the floor when it happened. But we were at the NHL draft in 2018, and we happened to be standing. Yeah. There was a deal that was this close, that was on maybe like the 2-yard line for Jeff Skinner to go to the Islanders. And we overheard Anthony rather overheard, what was it, the Philadelphia Flyers people talking about it?
Yeah, I thought who was it? Phil Bork, maybe, I think was in that organization. I thought it was him. But yes, you're right. We heard the Flyers organization talking about it.
So there was a rumored deal that Jeff Skinner was going to go to the Islanders, and it was almost done on draft night 2018. And the word was going around everywhere. Different organizations were even talking about it. So there must have been some serious traction on it for happen. And sometimes these deals can fall through.
Well, look, what was it last year? Was it last year's draft or 2 years ago? We were doing our stream, and Elliot Friedman and people talking that Lou in Vancouver were talking on the floor, and he was saying it looks like it's possible JT Miller could be heading to the Island, and then nothing ever happened after that.
Yeah,
and nothing happened, and they ended up trading that pick. They ended up trading the pick for Romanov instead. So things, things kind of fall apart, and it's just that's why, like, sometimes when you'll see like someone like on X or talks about a rumor, and then it doesn't happen, that person gets called out as like making stuff up. But that's not how it goes. Sometimes you have a legitimate source, you put it out there, and then it doesn't come to fruition. It doesn't mean that you're a fraud or you're wrong. It's just things fall apart.
Yeah. And if there's anybody to take it from, it's that guy right there. Yeah, I'm pointing the wrong way, sorry, but it's that guy right there. I mean, he understands it. He's got a better grasp of it than any of us. He's there. He knows how these things happen. And Chris, yes, I do remember this. There was word that Heatley was coming to the Rangers, and there was a trade that was supposed to happen for Heatley to come to the Rangers, and then they pivoted away from that, and that's when they signed Marian Gaborik right after that. I remember that happening.
I do remember that as well. But Phil, let's take about like 2 more questions. Got to hop off. I starred that one, but I wanted to just scroll up to answer Wicked's because I don't want to forget about him. But he mentioned this right here.
Yeah, I saw that.
Who's the Alex McGillney of goalies? That being a goalie should be in the Hall, but isn't. It's a good question.
Joseph.
Yes. Seventh all time in wins.
Upon retirement, he was top 5 all time.
Yeah. I guess it's the lack of Stanley Cup that really hurt him, right?
Honestly, I really don't know. It's one of those weird situations because I just don't understand how this guy hasn't made it. I really don't. With that many wins, I get it. There's also a lack of hardware with him.
Yeah.
He got the silver at the World Cup of Hockey, but he won gold at the 2002 Winter Olympics.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I don't understand how. I mean, he only played in 1 game, and Brodeur was really the starter, but he won gold with them. I don't understand it. I really don't. I mean, and he won a Spengler Cup in 2007. He's got international success. Luongo's in, so it's not him. Van Beesbroek, I don't think Van Beesbroek has the record for it.
What about this name for you? He's 13th all time in wins. Chris Osgood, 3 Stanley Cups.
Great teams in front of him. Really, for his entire career, great team. For at least his entire Detroit career, great teams in front of him. I mean, his record otherwise is not that great. It's really not.
Yeah.
I like Chris Osgood.
And also, he wasn't the starter in all those cup wins, though. In 96, 97, I think it was Vernon that was the starter.
It was. And Vernon won the Conn Smythe.
Yeah, and then 97-98, he was the starter because he played in 64 games. And then 07-08, he was the backup, I believe.
He took over. He won in 07-08. He took over for Hasek.
Oh, you're right. Yes, he did. Yep.
Yeah, I remember that. It was the first round in Nashville, and I think Hasek got pulled. He got finally yanked after game 4, I think it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, Osgood is, I would say he's very good. I just don't think he was ever nearly close to being the most important player on those teams.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. He wasn't. But when you look at where he at face value though, when you look at it and you see 13th all time in wins and 3 cups without diving in it further, you say to yourself, Hall of Famer. But when you really review it, you can make a case against him too. So,
I mean, there's a very short list of goaltenders with 300 wins. There's 39 of them currently. Osgood is ranked 13th all time, as you said. For me, I just wonder how much of that is. No, Ryan Miller is not in the Hall, but that's actually a good one, and I do think he could get it. So,
yeah, he's Miller's 16th in wins, and I think he's got some hardware though too, but Osgood doesn't.
Yeah,
or does Miller not?
As a Vezina, and he has an Olympic silver medal.
Yeah.
Osgood was never one of the Olympic choices. So, I mean, I will say this. Osgood played in what's considered right now probably the greatest goaltending generation. That 90s generation of goaltenders was the greatest. Like you had, and that's the knock against Curtis Joseph, because he played in an era where he had to deal with Ed Belfour, Marty Brodeur, Dominic Hasek, and Patrick Waugh. Yeah. He was never going to be better than those 4. Those 4 were the greatest ever.
No.
So
you're right.
And that hurts Osgood a lot too.
And the last question I wanted to, before I kind of had to top off, was this one, because they're not clicking it, but I don't see it on the. There you go.
Yeah, the one from Nicole. Yeah, it's a good question, Nicole. Supposedly there were rumors about Brady Tkachuk wanting out. Steve Stais obviously hasn't dealt him. I do think if Ottawa struggles again and they're looking bad, maybe those talks could be revisited. But again, it is really tough to make a big deal at the trade deadline for a player with term. Those deals are the hard, other than goaltending deals, because you never really see them. Big deals for players with high AAVs and term are the hardest deals to make. Tkachuk has 4 years left on a 7-year deal. Sorry, and it's going to be tough to move him because it's going to command a king's ransom, and sometimes those deals require NHL talents, and teams are very hard. Teams are very pressed to move big time player or roster players from their teams because they don't want to deconstruct in the middle of a run like the Rangers. Like if they wanted Jake Gensel, they were probably going to have to give up Capo, Kako, and then some. They didn't want to give up from their roster to get. The idea come trade deadline time is add to your roster without giving up big pieces of active players. Like you want to give up prospects and whatnot to make those deals happen. A deal like Tkachuk is going to require a young roster player at the deadline.
Yeah, I don't think he'd go at the deadline, and I've actually said this. I think if Ottawa misses the playoffs this year, I think he's going to go the path that his brother Matt did. I want to play meaningful playoff hockey. Like, I've already been in the league X amount of years. I want to get into the playoffs, and he's gonna say he wants to move because he's envious. Let's face it. You saw when the Panthers won, the guy was legitimately pumped for his brother. He's so happy for Matt. But at the same time, he wants that too. You know, he wants to win and he wants to play playoff hockey. So I think if the Senators miss the playoffs again, he's going to act for out in the offseason because how many years is he going to want to waste off of his career and not play playoff hockey?
Yeah,
I think he's going to want to go somewhere.
I agree. And Tomas Hertl, I don't think is really a comparable situation. I get he's a player with term and a high AAV, but Tomas Hertl, there was injury problems with him, and he's also older than Tkachuk. He's in his late 20s. So I just don't think that's really a comparable trade, to be honest with you. But yeah, we're gonna head out on that note.
I gotta hop off now.
Yeah, we're gonna head out. So thank you all for joining us. 2.5 hour show. Jeez.
Yeah. 117, 118 watching right now. So we all appreciate that. But make sure you like, share, subscribe. We'll be back next week, I would imagine, on our weekly Wednesday night show. And as always, if a big move were to happen or with one of the local teams, we would hop on and cover it. But other than that, we'll see you guys next Wednesday.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody.
Take it easy.